Sorry. This is Avi Cody Moran. This is my final for English. Who am I? All right. So the first thing I want to cover is the power of voice and expression. So in chapter 15, Miss Flower says, "Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with the shades of deeper meaning." Um, and so confidence. So I think, so for me, playing football and rugby, especially football, since I've been playing for a lot longer, has been one of the main sources or one of the biggest impacts to my confidence. Since I guess becoming a more like sentient human, after growing up past that, becoming a teenager, I guess I should say. I've been playing football. I've been playing flag football since fifth grade. I played through middle school. Started playing contact in ninth grade, at St. Mary's as a freshman. But it really wasn't until my freshman year that I think football really helped out with my confidence. So I think I've always been a pretty decent communicator. I wasn't really the person to kind of raise my hand in class or to talk with people around me. I kind of just had my own friends. I had a few people, maybe three or four guys or gal, whoever, three or four friends or so in my little circle. And maybe I'd hang out with some other people, but it was really just them. But football is a game that you have to communicate, and you have to communicate for, and rugby too. But I only started playing rugby last year. So especially as a lineman, as O line, D line, I would argue we communicate more than most other positions on the football field. Ms. Davey, I don't know how familiar you are with those positions, but it's the 4 or 5 guys, the big guys that block or try to tackle each other. They're up, up in the front, right by the ball. So there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of things that happen in that small amount of time. There's a lot of thinking that happens. And throughout every game, there's always a lot of yelling to each other, not in a mean way, but just, yelling, cover this, or hey, there's a blitzing linebacker. We have to adjust our strength call, or maybe we'll run a twist on defense and try to fake out the offensive line to try to get a sack, or, whatever it is. But it taught me that, to have confidence in my voice. It's definitely not, my life has been nowhere near as hard as Maya Angelou's was, especially, and not just because these are different times, but I'm a white straight male. I'm basically got the lottery on the least discriminated against, I guess person. But anyway, my point is, yeah, I think a link can be that, just how Maya finds strength in her language and through writing and getting her voice on paper and then being able to speak it, through poetry and through actual stories, I don't know why the cage bird sings. I find strength in my physical expression and teamwork. Football. I'm gonna get into the role of Mr. Schaefer a little bit later. Actually, probably the next slide, I think. But it takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot of mental dealings with it. I think I've heard a lot of people who've played football and other sports at all different levels: college, NFL, high school. You can even ask Mr. Sanchez. Most of them will say football is arguably the hardest sport you can play because there's a lot more to it than just, playing the game. I don't know. It's really hard to kind of get the scope of it all, but every practice, basically, there's a time in there where you feel like you want to quit. And that's done on purpose, because in football games, there's times where you're I want to quit. I want to, give up, I guess, basically. But you have to keep pushing through, and you have to keep, for your team. That's the thing that you're thinking about in your team, and you have to keep the communication going. And, it's a tough sport, obviously, and that's also another thing I'll get into a little bit later as well. But focusing on voice and expression, you know, um, also being able to like physically get stronger and physically get better, being able to like, I guess project would be the right word, or like express myself, um, not just to other people, but even just to myself, like finding out who I am, like when I'm put in these adverse situations, who am I, like what am I, how am I going to respond to it, and and especially I would say, how am I going to, you know like how am I going to lift up the rest of my team, as a leader, even not as just a leader, even if I'm just talking to the two guys like around me, or I'm just like, we got to push through, we got to keep going, and I think it really found like, it was definitely a place where I felt like, especially my freshman and my sophomore year, being able to really figure out like who I am, I guess. So yeah. So next thing I want to talk about is the power of a mentor. So like I said, I was going to talk about Mr. Schaefer. I would definitely say, I would argue that I think he's probably like the teacher at St. Mary's, especially, and maybe in most of my life, I think, as far as I can remember, that has had like the biggest impact on me. And I think, again, the scope of things is for sure a bit different than Maya and Mrs. Flowers, my situation and everything. I mean, sexually assaulted as a very young person, I think at 8 or 9 years old, I think it was, and becoming basically selectively mute because she was worried that, her voice led to the death of Mr. Freeman, I think it was. And yeah, she yeah, definitely, tough situation. I am nowhere near that type of direness, I guess, but anyway, so I don't know why I went on that tangent. Anyway, I'll read out the quote that I'm going to be referencing for a second. Quote, I had to stop speaking. I knew what Mrs. Flowers had sent for me. She wanted me to read aloud, and I hadn't done that for anyone in years. There was a magic in the power of the spoken word. It was not just the thing that was said, but the way it was said and the way it was heard. And so, like I said, when she spoke about, I already covered all that. So, yeah, she internalized her guilt, by going selectively mute, and it makes, I guess it sort of makes sense. I mean, it does make sense, but it's also, it's interesting that she found, I wouldn't say sympathy, but like, whatever for Mr. Freeman, even though he did such terrible things to her. But Miss Flowers, she urged Maya to embrace the power of language and how she can, transform the way she lives. I mean, going from being selectively mute to being able to speak and being this famous poet and storyteller in our world. It's remarkable. I mean, she did like basically a complete 180 with Maya, and Miss Flowers, she really let Maya see her own potential, and she ignited her her passion for storytelling and poetry and stuff. And yeah, so I think Miss Flowers played a huge role, obviously, in Maya's life and overcoming her trauma and the guilt that she was carrying for many years. Yeah, so presenting that to me, Mr. Schaefer, like I said, definitely a big part of my life, especially my recent life, my high school life. So I think, so freshman year, I was pretty, all right, my mom was trying to talk to me about something. Okay. Anyway, so back here, power mentor. So Mr. Schaefer, he absolutely encouraged me to embrace my physical mental strength. So when I was in middle school, I struggled with pretty bad body image issues. I think worse than the average kid. I mean, I know every kid, especially in their like puberty era, their puberty ages, definitely get this sense of body image insecurity, but it got pretty bad. I went to therapy for a very long time. I was suicidal. I still have some scars on, my wrists and upper arms where I used to, you know, mess around with that. So it was tough, but I learned how to kind of see the bigger picture. My therapist really helped me with that. And so I was feeling pretty good, but I still like the intensity, I guess, of it all. I think kind of went away a bit. I worked through it with my therapist over like the 2 years, 7th and 8th grade. Or eighth grade was the Zoom year, so I was that kind of honestly helped a little bit because I wasn't outside. I wasn't seeing other people. I wasn't able to compare myself to other people as much. But also it was the COVID year, so I gained a lot more weight, even more than I was before. And so going into my 9th grade year, going into playing football, those feelings were really starting to flare up again. And it felt like before, one of the biggest things that really affected me when I was in that really dark time in my life, was feeling like I didn't have control over my body and over my life because or not over my life, I would say over my body, because I kept being, my doctors, whoever, I kept telling them I want to lose weight. I don't know how. I don't really understand this because honestly, I ate pretty well, healthy wise, but I just ate a lot of the wellness. So it was like, we'd have steak, potatoes, and like asparagus in a salad. And then I would go back and get like second or thirds of potatoes and maybe more steak or something, whatever, like stuff like that. So, but my point is, I felt like I didn't really have control over it all. And so I think, Mr. Schaefer, I didn't really know him that well for the first month or two because I was on JV and, the focus is always on varsity. It's like, trying to get the big guys bigger and, the freshmen just kind of teach them the basics. It was also Schaefer's first year, so I think he was also kind of testing the waters with like how far his like relationships with our players and stuff would be. But so anyway, I started asking him like questions about just general lifting advice and how often I should lift and just kind of simple things. And then when I started like trusting it, I guess, trusting the process a little bit and like lifting and stuff, I didn't even know anything about eating, but I just started lifting and I wasn't lifting very well. I wasn't lifting very consistently, but I still I still felt a little bit of progress. Like I was getting a little bit stronger. It felt good. I was like, oh my God, I actually can like do something and I can get better. And, then there's obviously the kind of placebo effect when you're that young and you're that new to lifting where you think every time you get stronger, you look in the mirror and like, oh yeah, I'm so much bigger. I'm so much stronger or whatever. But I really wasn't. I probably didn't gain like anything. Cause like I said, looking back from what I know now, God, I don't even know what I was doing back then. But then I really started looking up stuff about nutrition and really kind of going into that. And then Schaefer helped me out with that. And he gave me a pretty, like a basic plan that I can kind of focus on. It was nowhere near as restrictive as I thought it would be. And he wasn't like, this is exactly what you should do. It was just more like guidelines, like, something he always famously liked to say, you could ask anybody in the athletic program that was there when he was there, is like, if you're asking about nutrition, the first thing they'll just say is eat as much of everything that you can find in the wild as possible. So like, as long as you're eating things that you find growing naturally, like, and he's always used the same example that, there's no such thing as a Skittles tree. Or there's no such thing as like a McDonald's burger tree. Like, have your meat, have your potatoes, have your whatever, but have it in a way where it's still natural. Anyway, my point, okay, I keep going on tangents. I'm sorry. I know I'm kind of wasting time here, but my point is, I started seeing real progress on myself, on my body, and my body is really the thing I was so hyper vigilant about, and being able to see the strength gains plus the losing fat plus the slightly a little bit more muscle. I mean, it was huge for me. It was like I'm finally old enough, I guess. I was like 14, I think. And during middle school and stuff, every time I talked to the doctors, they kept telling me, I was too young. I can't lift. I'm too young, and it's just not safe and it's just not whatever. But I'd wanted to for so long. But now I was finally old enough to do that. And I got that control in my life. And I felt like I was able to really, like, change the things for the better, change my body so that I could feel that, things can get better. Like in a decade from now, I could look really freaking awesome. Like I can get a lot more muscle. I can get a lot leaner. I can get a lot whatever. Obviously there's a limit to it, and unless I take steroids or something, which I'm not going to do, but yeah. So I think getting that control over my body really made me feel like, I mean, if I just put my mind to something, I can just do it, and I think, and with alongside that, I mean, kind of like a transition into like, he taught me that hard work pays off. And a lot of what he taught me wasn't really like direct, I guess. Like he never really sat me down and was like, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to feel better control in your life, and this is hard work pays off. Like, I don't think he's ever really said the words hard work pays off to me, but he was our strength and conditioning coach for football, meaning on the days when it's like, oh my God, I have so much homework and I'm tired and I didn't get enough sleep, or maybe I didn't eat as well, or man, I just don't really feel like going to practice. Like it's been like 3 months or something of just everything. And then we get there and he's like, we're doing these like crazy sprints, and then it's just like you feel like you're going to throw up and you're going to pass out, and some people do, or they don't pass out, but some people are like really getting messed up, and it's just like, oh my God, I can't keep going. But then I keep going, and then it's just like, and I keep thinking that it's in my control. Like as long as I'm still conscious and awake and I'm able to stand and walk and move and run, I'm fine. Like I'm not dying. My body's trying to tell me I'm dying, but I'm fine. I'm fine as long as until I'm not fine. But and being able to push through that, and then like that satisfaction of like when he says, last rep, it blows the whistle, we have our break and we all go home and stuff after we're all dead tired or whatever, get water and stuff. It's like I'm one of the people that did not quit. And it felt really good. And, and then I got better. And then those conditioning days where we're running, or lifting, doing all these things, and we're getting so tired and stuff. And it's just like, but then I was getting better. My cardio was getting better. So it was getting easier. And so that's one of the ways he taught me indirectly that, hard work pays off. When I do these really hard things, these hard, exercises and these hard eating plans, even if they weren't so hard, but still restricting what you eat is hard in its own way. It pays off, and you can see results, and I could see results, and it was awesome, and I never felt so alive. And I mean, ever since my freshman year, I've basically tried to do some sort of like hard activity at least 4 or 5 times a week. Nowadays it's 6 days a week with running in the morning and then lifting in the evening. But when I was a little bit younger, a little bit newer, it's not so wise to jump into something as crazy as that immediately. So, but, and it helped a lot. I really, it really paid off. And I think, kind of like how Ms. Flowers really like taught Maya how to speak her voice, I guess. Schaefer taught me how, hard work pays off. And without his really hard conditioning days, and without him being there as someone I can ask questions and teach me a lot about exercise science, I really don't know how much I would have achieved, I think, in football. I mean, there's people who are seniors, who I've played football 4 years with, and they are nowhere, I mean, I'm bragging, but I'm also not bragging. Like, it sounds like I'm bragging, but my point, okay. There's seniors like who played football with me for the whole 4 years, and they're not as strong as me. They're not as fit as me. They're not as knowledgeable as me. They don't know the game as well as me. And it's not because I had some like fancy, whatever. It's just because Schaefer just helped me. I mean, first of all, I asked for help, but then when he did help me, it paid off, a crazy amount. Just like Maya getting help from Miss Flowers completely altered her life for the better. And I will never be as, I can't be too grateful to Schaefer for what he saw me. But yeah, and another thing is my freshman year, I think he saw something in me that I didn't really see in myself, but a few other people, a few other teachers, even my therapist have kind of told me about. They see this kind of leadership role in me, but I never really understood that. Like, I never really got what that meant until I started playing football, and until Schaefer really started I mean, honestly, he pulled me aside one time, and he was, it was kind of simple. Like, it was just like, because the varsity needed to do their thing, and the freshmen needed to do their own thing, because we were at different levels. You wouldn't put like 14-year-old kids doing the same stuff that like a 17, 18-year-old guy's doing who's been doing it for 3 years before. But he needed to focus on their drill because their drill was like something more complicated. The freshman I think it wasn't that bad. It was some sprints with I don't know. It was a hard thing, but he pulled me aside and he was basically just like, I need you to lead this. I need you to lead the freshmen. And he told me the plan. And he said, make sure it's done. Make sure everyone is trying hard and make sure everyone is doing it. And I think I wouldn't say nervous, but I was definitely kind of like, okay, I don't really know if anyone really respects me like that. I don't really, this was only like 2 months maybe into it. So like I knew people on our team a little bit, but like I wasn't like super close with all of them. But him entrusting me with that responsibility, it really, I guess, opened my eyes to how, I can do it. It's just this idea of just like, I can do it. I can help my body image issues by taking control of my body. I can push through really hard practices or really hard, practices, really hard physical activity. And I can get better from it. And so I can take this leadership role and I can do it. And I did it. And I think, we did it as a team together. And it felt great. I mean, as a JV team, as the freshman group. And, now I'm, people call me the team captain, even though we have 6 team captains this year. The 5 other captains, Anthony Suni, Sutton, Jason Webb, and Jason Rodriguez, all literally asked me to just like, they call me the captain, even though I'm just one of the 6, but I'm always the one who's talking to the coaches. I have all their coaches' numbers. I'm talking to them, text them. They give information through me, and I give it to everyone else. I talk to Sanchez, Schaefer. I mean, I've just turned into this person who's taken that role. And even my junior year, I was starting over some seniors, Elliot and Angel from last year, on the D line and Bobby. And my D line coach said basically the same thing. Like, he said he sees something in me, and he says he really wants me to continue to branch out in this leadership role in our D line. And he ended up letting me kind of like entrusting me to lead some drills while he went and talked to our head coach about something else. And basically stuff like that has been happening. I think the only year I didn't really take a leadership role like as much at all really was my sophomore year, because I was a sophomore starting on varsity, and I was like totally freaked out because I was super young and I was like on this team with all juniors and seniors who were all 16 to 18 years old, and they're all really good, whatever. So that was basically the only year where I was kind of like, ooh, I don't really know what I'm doing. And it was only me and Jason Rodriguez that were sophomores on that team. So I didn't really have any seniority. I didn't really have any skill to really back up anything, and I didn't really have the confidence to, because I felt like I couldn't really prove it. But anyway, yeah. So, so that's Power and Mentor. So So another thing I would like to cover is dreams, aspirations amid constraints. So again, one preface this again. I have literally, as I've written on this slide here, obviously I have not endured nearly the same adversity faced by Maya Angelou or any other person of color, especially a woman or a member of the LGBTQ community in America. But you know, I I still think I've faced some adversity, a little bit. And what I'm going to talk about today is I mean it's adversity, but not as much, I guess. But anyway, I'll read the quote. I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. So anyway, the quote is: the fact that the adult American black female emerges as a formidable character is often met with amazement, distaste, and even belligerence. It is seldom accepted as an inevitable outcome of the struggle won by survivors. So Maya Angelou is highlighting the resilience and the strength that someone needs to rise above societal limitations. Being a black woman, especially in the Deep South, or even not even just in the Deep South, but especially anywhere in America, especially at that time, facing discrimination and sexism, and I mean, it was really bad, and it's society was not ready, and arguably still isn't ready to have someone of, I guess, that creed. I don't know if that's the right term. Someone, a black woman of color, oh my God, a woman of color, in America being like on a pedestal because of their work and being celebrated for their work, in whatever field they're in. And so in a similar, but obviously nowhere near as, I guess, not impactful, but more like nowhere near as severe, I guess, of a situation. So I want to major in kinesiology in college, and kinesiology is just exercise science, basically. It's studying nutrition, physiology, which is like how certain exercises affect, or like how your body responds to certain exercises, and nutrition, and different. I mean, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. It's a field that's ever growing and getting more popular by the day, or by the times. But it is still the jobs that are like offered, I guess. There's only a few options you can really get with a degree like that, and that's like being an athletic trainer, being a physical therapist, which actually needs its own small amount of schooling extra too. What's it called? Being a strength conditioning coach, being a personal trainer, and then maybe being a nutritionist, except most nutritionists or dietitians get more like dedicated schooling for that, as opposed to just getting a general, like kinesiology definitely covers nutrition, but it's not as in depth as like nutrition focused thing. But anyway, my point is, none of those fields, except maybe like physical therapy, really pay well at all. And my parents, like, I'm talking like in the Bay Area, I mean, even at the college level, even at the NFL level, I mean, trainers are in the NFL level, trainers make an average like 75 grand a year. At the high school level, they're making 50, maybe, depending on where they're at and everything. I mean, Schaefer even told me he only made like 55 grand a year, I think, with a master's and with, certificates. Oh my God. Certificates, certified strength conditioning coach. It's, so he had a lot of credentials and he still was not getting paid a lot. So my parents have always stressed on me is two things. One, follow your dreams and do what you love, work a job that you love. But they want, better for me. I mean, both my parents have literally sat me down and have told that to me point blank, that they don't want me to be, worried about my bills, which obviously I know comes from a place of love, because my parents have only ever loved me and I appreciate them every day. But I mean, and what they're saying is true. It's not a field that really gets paid well. And initially I was going to go in for like engineering or something. But then going through high school, especially these last few years, and especially taking like AP pre-calculus my junior year, I knew, I was like, I hate math more like with a passion. I can't do this. I mean, like I'm cool with some math, like in chemistry and biology has like a little math, but it's not like that complicated. But like engineering, oh my God, I would hate myself. Like it would be the worst job ever. It would be the worst field for me to go in. And but it would pay a lot, it would pay significantly better, especially if I went into like, you know, what's called like chemical engineering or computer science, whatever. Um, yeah. So anyway, I so those are like I guess the constraints I guess that I faced. Um, and I don't know how my future will pan out, obviously, but I have a lot of trust built up with myself. Relating back to the whole Schaefer thing and relating back to getting a sense of control in myself and over my life through working on my body and learning throughout learning about this topic and everything. I mean, Schaefer was really the one who like sparked this interest in exercise science for me, and now I've just taken off and like I just watch YouTube videos all the time and I learn everything about it and I love reading new studies that come out, and he's taught me so much. He's taught me how to read studies and how to like really pick them apart and really kind of find their flaws, because science is all about proving something wrong until you can't prove it wrong anymore, and that's when we find out it's like fact or theory or whatever. But my point, going back, I feel like I trust myself to figure it out, I guess, and I think that I will persevere. I was at a dark time in my life when I didn't really want. I mean, I didn't want to live anymore. I hated myself that deeply. I hated looking at myself. It was pretty bad. But I made it. I made it through that, and I made it even farther than just surviving through that. I feel like I'm doing better than ever now, especially regarding that, because I feel the most in control of myself, and my body and everything, and my food I eat and exercise I do, and that control that spans to this. I think when I go to college, I'll figure it out. I really do trust myself to figure it out, and to, someone who's doubted. I mean, not doubted, but someone who's. I mean, I guess it is kind of doubted, because they doubt that I'm gonna be successful going through this career job, this career path. Kind of like Maya Angelou, where it's like, I mean, again, the scope of things very different, but being a successful black woman in America, it's people doubted her, obviously, but now look at her. Look at her now. I mean, I think she's passed away by now, but even if she has, if she hasn't, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. She is, I mean, one of the most influential, artists of our time, of the past, however, past a long time, probably. And so, I don't know where I'll go, with this. And I honestly, my dream job would be come back to St. Mary's and be the strength conditioning coach, pick up Schaefer's legacy. Not because I just want to do exactly what Schaefer did or whatever, but because I love the topic and I feel like working with high school kids would actually be really fun, especially at St. Mary's, my freaking school. I feel like that sounds awesome. But it's just did not pay well. But I trust myself to figure it out. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life and who I am, is that I can trust myself and I can be successful when not only do others not believe I can be, but when I don't even believe I can be. And I don't even believe that I can have like control over myself, or I can't, I don't believe any of that, but I can do it because I've done it before and I'll continue doing it. So yeah. So who am I? Wrapping this up, I think, Maya Angelou, she reminds us, the reader, that our identities are not defined by the challenges we face, but how we rise above them. Yeah, I think that really speaks for itself, I think. Yeah. So I've personally, my struggles, especially regarding my body and everything connected to that. Um, it's something that I can kind of like face now, I guess, and again, feel that sense of control, and that control that my mentor, I would say, Mr. Schaefer, it's again similar to how Mrs. Flowers is like the mentor to Maya, and how Miss Flowers put on this, I guess what I say, like emphasize the sense of control to Maya, and how she taught Maya how to take control of her voice and project it so the world can hear it through literature, through writing, and through speaking. And Schaefer taught me to, like, I guess use my, I don't even know, to express myself. I am, who am I? I'm a leader. I think that's something that's going to take me very far in life, and I'm someone who can get the job done when it needs to be done. And so, yeah, I think so I think football and rugby a bit. I mean, again, rugby is sort of a new sport for me. This year is only gonna be my second year playing this senior year, but it's a painful sport. It's a hard sport. I mean, there are times in rugby where I was like, oh my god, I don't want to play this anymore. This is super hard, like in a game. But the game, what I love about rugby, honestly, it's like a love-hate relationship with it, this aspect. The game never stops. So you never really, like, you never get time to rest, and it's just full set. You get 2 35-minute halves, and the clock basically never stops unless someone gets injured or like a team scores. But it's like, so it sucks because you can't get rest, but also you can't think, I guess, as much. So you're thinking, oh, it's really bad, but then you're like, like you just can't think about that. You have to just keep pushing. You have to think about the next thing, the next tackle you have to make, the next pass, the next whatever. And so, yeah, I think so. I think my experience with struggling with my body image, playing very physical and difficult sports like football and rugby. I've played many other sports. I played baseball, basketball, soccer, tennis. I even joined a swim team for like a month. I didn't really like that, but my point is, I've done a lot of sports, but these two these two contact heavy and very difficult sports, rugby and football, like required me to pull something deep from me, from my, like to figure out who am I? Am I someone who's gonna break when I've made the fourth tackle in a row in rugby, and I'm like, oh my god, I feel like my heart is about to like just blow up in my chest because I'm so tired, and this 300-pound guy just freaking ran me over, and my shoulder hurts, and I've turf burn, my arms are bleeding, my legs are all scraped up and bruised, and I can feel the heat. I can already feel my leg getting swollen. I'm not even halfway through the game. Like, am I someone who's going to call for a sub, or I'm going to fake an injury? Like, honestly, a lot of my teammates do, and they just sit on the bench and just drink water and basking in the sunlight. Well, I'm out there winning the game for us as someone I will put myself and my body and my mind on the line so that my team can win, even if my team gives up. And so I think, and that's again similar with football. I think these two sports really bring out a lot in people, because of their physicality, because they're scary. I mean, I've been scared so many times playing these sports, and even if I'm bigger than the person, even if I'm smaller, even whatever, it's just scary. I mean, you never want to. It's like instinctively you don't want to hit people, you don't want to get hit, but it's just, it happens, and it's fine. And I've lived to tell lived to tell another tale. And yeah, so I think the leadership and the teamwork, that I've really, emphasized in my life, in my recent life, has come from my mentors like Mr. Schaefer, along with, I would say, honestly, like a figurative mentor, I guess, would be my team, because without my team, I wouldn't have anything to really play for. I wouldn't have anything to really push for, in that sense, where it's like, if I just want to give up, I can't give up because my team is there. Even though, like, if I think about my team as like its own entity, basically, I would say that's almost like a mentor because it taught me so many things as well, like discipline, leadership, teamwork, perseverance. So, as I've written on my slide, I keep just not even looking at my slides. I'm honestly just like eyeballing this thing, which I think this is why it's super long, and I'm really sorry for that. But I kind of just getting in a roll here. But yeah, I'm a person who will push to the end so that my team can make it across the finish line. I am someone who will take control of what I can control, like the I think it's called the Serenity prayer or something, prayer of serenity, where it's like, I mean, I'm sure you know it, Miss Davy. My mom taught me that from a very young age. Actually, both my moms did. But yeah, I'm someone who will not give up when things seem darkest. I did not give up on myself in 7th grade, and when I wanted to, and I would cry in the mirror, and everything. I didn't give up on myself then. I didn't give up on myself in 9th grade when I felt like I wasn't in control, and then Schaefer taught me how to be in control. Basically, again, indirectly. Schaefer never really sat me down and was like, "This is how to take control." He taught me things, and it helped me out. Anyway, and I learned to be a leader, and I learned that even if I'm not the best on the field, even if I'm not the loudest voice, even if I'm not whatever, I can be someone that people can rely on to at least give everything I have in my effort for our team and for the betterment of everything, for the game, for whatever I'm doing. And so, yeah, that is who I am as Avi Cody Moran. Yeah, so thank you for listening. I hope this was good. I think I decided to record this as opposed to presenting it because I kind of wanted to get into something a little bit more. I don't know. I honestly just kind of wanted to just try it and see how this goes. I wasn't really planning on talking about my experiences in middle school with everything, but I think it added to it all, and I don't know if I would have been as vulnerable if I was in a room with 30 other people just waiting to do their presentations too. So I hope this is a valid form of submission of my final, and then I'll do this reflection. So anyway, that's me. That's Avi. Also, I would love to be a football coach as well. Strength and conditioning coach at St. Mary's, also football coach, like Coach Mr. Prime over here, Deion Sanders. So yeah, all right. I'm done.